And welcome back to Make the Money and Run for Friday, August the 7th, 2020. Along with Casey Freelove and Vasu Vadaparty, I'm Charlie O. We're coming to you on Facebook Live. We also are available on Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. And we come to you every Friday with a full 60-minute show. And then we are available Monday through Saturday on a daily sports update, and we give you our picks and things that are going on. We make our picks available on Sunday, but we do take Sunday off. That way you don't have to look at us. It's a little better for your health. But guys, baseball just continues to be interesting. Things are kind of topsy-turvy. A lot of day games yesterday. But Vasu, I got to go to you right away. You talked about the Battle of Ohio yesterday, and you picked the Cleveland Indians over the Cincinnati Reds, and they didn't just win. They destroyed the Reds 13-0. They scored 13 runs on 11 hits and committed no errors. The Reds, no runs, 3 hits, no errors. And now Carrasco was on the mound, so that we weren't really surprised that the Reds had a difficult time there. But Vasu, what is happening with the Reds? Their bats are silent.
Yeah, Charlie, the Reds definitely did have a tough opponent in Carlos Carrasco. He's come out since he's been back from his cancer diagnosis. He's all good and clear to go play right now. They just had a lot. The relievers came in. We talked about how the Cincinnati relievers have given up a lot of runs. Well, they walked the house yesterday. That was a 10-run inning that they got, and they scored Jose Ramirez to the second home run of the game. But they were able to get at Luis Castillo a little bit. They got the 1 run. It was 1-0. 3-0 going into the later innings, and then the 10-run inning happened, and it was just an avalanche of things that could happen. You know, Murphy's Law, the sky falling, anything that could have happened in that inning to the Reds. A lot of it were two bases loaded walks were in there as well too, and that was the Reds bullpen. And before 4-0, 6-0, I kept looking at the phone. I had the Indians yesterday as one of my picks, and then it was 8-0, and then it was when it got to 10-0, I switched over to the other game and found out that it was 13-0. So I really wasn't worried about it at 8-0. But Carlos Carrasco has pitched really well, and he was only about at home. He was only about $1.15 favorite. A lot of that was the fact that they got Luis Castillo on the mound, who was the Reds. But I would definitely not take lightly the Cleveland Indians right now. They are certainly playing really good baseball. Their defense is outstanding. Jose Ramirez, Francisco Lindor are hitting the snot out of the ball, and the fact is that they are right there in the division with the Twins in terms of competing. And when the Twins and Indians play again in a week, it's going to be a very tight probably.
Casey, I want to talk to you a little bit about the Oakland A's. You know a lot about them for 2 reasons. One is that you're a fan. Number 2, they are on your station and you have to cover them as well. The A's and I'm going to use a ironic little term here, they're on fire. And yesterday they had Mike Fiers on the mound, but they've won 3 in a row, and this team is really starting to turn it around. They have found their power. Matt Olson led off the scoring yesterday, hitting his 3rd home run of the season, hit 2 the night before, hit a home run yesterday to score their first run. But this team all of a sudden now has started to look like the Oakland A's that we thought they were going to be.
Yeah, they won 3 in a row against Texas, and now that's 6 in a row total. They lost the opener against the Mariners last week, and then they ran off 3 in a row there. So 6-game win streak. Here's the scariest thing for the folks at home. We've talked about the power in these bats. They've been doing it with balance. There's not one guy on this team that has a batting average at 300 this early on in the season. Ramon Laureano, they're leading the way with a 295 average, but Matt Olson at 190, Pinder at 158, Chris Davis at 185. And he's going to get up to 247 before the season's over because that's what Chris Davis does. But the bottom line is they've done it with some really good pitching. Fiers looked good yesterday. I know he gave up 4 earned runs, so he didn't look great, but the offense was able to balance that out. And I think the A's still are trying to find their identity as far as the pitching staff. I mean, they're bummed that they didn't have Puck. They probably haven't been that excited by Frankie Montas in his starts this year. Mike Fiers is kind of that steady ship during the storm because the guy's been there before. He's played for so long that he's the kind of guy you can turn to and certainly depend on. But the A's are hot. They're 9-4. They're already building a lead over the Houston Astros. And I am so very excited about this weekend series, guys. It's my birthday weekend. I should have been there. If society hadn't collapsed, we had been scheduled to be in the suite. We were going to bring out the garbage cans and be pounding on them and just pounding those 2017 cheating Astros, who I used to love with all my heart because they made me so much money when they stunk. And I was excited when they won the World Series. Not so excited. It's kind of like when I found out that my childhood hero, Mark McGwire, was just a big steroided freak cheater, and I had to abandon him too. Oh, I'm starting to ramble. I'm sorry. But getting back to your point, the A's are playing good baseball in the West, and I'll throw it over to you, Vasu. But one thing I want to talk about during this segment is we're seeing the teams that were projected to have high win totals in the over-under in the preseason really rounding into the form. I mean, the Yankees, the Twins, the A's, the Indians were even a team that were just kind of on the outskirts of that upper tier. And we're seeing teams, we talked about it, you can't have a slow start, you better come out running, and the teams that have the talent to do it are doing so.
Well, okay, so we knew the teams that were going to be good going into it. The Yankees got off to an 8-1 start. They've run into a little trouble with Philadelphia. These are the makeup games that they had. Everybody's trying to move around the schedules based on COVID-19 and based on a couple of weather games have taken place as well too. So I'm actually very happy when I see a game postponed now by weather as opposed to coronavirus. It's actually good. But the Florida Marlins are 6-1, or the Miami Marlins are 6-1. They've only played 7 games, and I'll be interested. I'm rooting for them a little bit because of everything that they've gone through. But the fact is that they're going to have to, on the back end, they're going to have to make up these games somehow to at least get to a representative sample. If they don't have the pitching, or we'll see how the pitching fares, because there's doubleheaders are going to come in waves in the next few weeks or so. And these makeup days, remember, everybody only had 6 days off of a 60-game schedule. So 60 games and 66 days is what we're looking at now with COVID-19 and them only having 7 games into the season, where everybody else is at 12, 13, 14, and 15 cases, that they're going to have to be backed up here a little bit with doubleheaders. And I think that that's good for this year for the 7-inning doubleheaders. But they haven't lost yet, and Don Mattingly became the all-time winningest manager in Marlins history, even though he's been on the hot seat for 2 years. So good for Donnie Baseball and good for the Marlins, and I hope it continues for them, because I certainly would like to see them compete the Braves and the Mets. Not sure what's going to happen with the Nationals in the East, because Max Scherzer went out after 2 innings the other day. So, and we haven't seen much word or heard much word of Strasburg lately. So, but I guess Soto's back for Washington. But I got a feeling that it's going to be a very, very interesting point, Casey.
To what you just said there, Chuck, and sorry, I'll throw it to you, but I've been burned a few times already this year, guys, by guys that started the game. Corey Kluber for the Rangers back before he got hurt. Max Scherzer, I had the Nationals in that game. He pitched an inning and he had to leave. That's one unfortunate thing. We talk about listing the pitchers to make sure you've got your starting guys out there, but you can't predict when somebody's going to lose to injury. So don't beat yourself up too much if you feel like you handicapped the game well based on the information you had at the time, because things happen, Chuck.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, baseball may be the hardest game of everything to handicap, because there's so many elements that are involved, and the game can go awry so quickly. I mean, it just can't. I mean, baseball can spin in 1 inning so far out of control that a pitcher can just, all of a sudden a pitcher can go 3-4 innings and you're going, hey, this is great. He's doing exactly what he wants to do. Comes out in the 5th inning and you go, what is he throwing at? What happened? What happened to his curveball? What happened to his sinker? Because it just goes away. And you go, why did it happen? Nobody knows. If you knew, you'd be the best pitching coach in the world, because things just go crazy. Batters come out. Chris Davis the other day came out, got a little nubber of a single. Lousy contact, but he finally made some contact. Came up to his next at bat, clubbed his first home run. Explain that to me. You can't. And that's why baseball is so difficult to handicap. So if you make a mistake, jump back in. It's just what you have to do. And again, baseball is tough, but that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it fun.
Absolutely. And one thing to keep an eye on if you're at home getting your bets ready, the St. Louis Cardinals once again will not be playing today's game against the Cubs. Just today's game so far, according to Major League Baseball, postponed because they found an 8th Cardinals player to test positive for the coronavirus. Baseball said that this postponed game tonight will allow for additional testing and contact tracing. St. Louis hasn't played a game since July 29th. So, I mean, we're sitting here on August 7th looking at a team that has just been sitting on the sideline. The team previously announced they'd returned 13 positive tests from its traveling party, 7 of those being players. And, of course, a couple of all-stars, Yadier Molina and then De Jong as well. And then Carlos Martinez has gone on the injured list. So Vasu, when this team returns, I guess we've never really even seen anything like this, but how do you just kind of kickstart the engine and get back out there when you haven't played for likely 10 days?
It's hard, Casey, because baseball is an everyday sport, and it's like golf. It's repetition. It's all muscle, and you just have to stay sharp. You can see it. The 2.5 weeks of spring training is tough on some teams, and you can tell by how it's been defensively. And some of the swings that I've seen have not been very good. But coming pitchers are always ahead of hit. So, but some of the defense, the Giants' defense has been played awful this year, and they're a pretty good. They're a pretty good team. Defensively coming in with Brandon Crawford even making errors that I haven't seen, but it's kind of that way around baseball right now, Charlie. As far as how getting used to kind of getting back in the swing of things of the everyday mode. It's hard to go 3 days on, 3 days off, 4 days on, 4 days off based on what's going on in 2020. But I think everybody's making the best of it.
Oh, I think everybody's doing terrific in trying to adjust and go with it. So it's pretty good, guys. What about your picks?
Yeah, let's get right to it, boys. I'm going one heavy favorite and one pick'em pal pretty much. I like the Dodgers tonight against the Giants minus the 260. I mean, LA, I don't think they felt great about the first series they had against San Francisco this year. They're expecting Mookie Betts to get back as well tonight, so that should be something that will help them out a little bit. And I just feel like it's their time. Jeff Samardzija, he's got a 9 ERA already, 2-5 lifetime against LA with a 3.83 earned run average. So I'll go with Urias and the Dodgers there. And then I'm going to go with Blake Snell against Tanaka and the Yankees. I mean, the Yankees have been winning a lot of games. Tampa Bay's expected to be a little bit better than they played. There's a reason why it's at minus 105, whether you take Tampa or New York, because the odds makers know this is going to be quite a contest. So I will give Tampa the edge at home. My two picks, Tampa Bay and LA Dodgers. Vasu.
I'm going to go with the Yankees tonight with Tanaka. Blake Snell hasn't pitched very well this year.
There you go.
And then I'm going to go with the Yankees, and I'm going to take the under in the Dodgers Giants game tonight. So only 2 baseball picks for me today, guys.
And I'm going one baseball pick, and I'm going to go Twins on the money line over the Royals. So there you go. Very conservative baseball pick. So that's going to wrap up the B segment, and we have Major League Baseball there for you. And when we come back, we've got a cornucopia of things to talk about. And with sports, there's never nothing to talk about. And now we've actually got sports to talk about. You're watching Make the Money and Run for Friday, August the 7th, 2020. We'll be right back.
Go.
And welcome back to Make the Money and Run for Friday, August the 7th, 2020. We are coming to you on Facebook Live. You can also find us on Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and on Spotify, along with Vasu Vadaparty and Casey Freelove. We want to welcome in a guy who's been on our show before, and we have enjoyed him so much. We have asked him to come back, and much to our surprise, he said yes. So we are really glad to have him come back. He's an attorney. You can find his stuff on lawinsports.com or lawinsport.com. Let me get that correct. His name is Daniel Lust. Dan, thanks for coming back and being with us again.
My pleasure. I don't mean to correct you. It's Sports Law Lust. It's I'm on Twitter at Sports Law Lust.
No, correct me. We want everybody to find you. Say it one more time.
Yours sounded better than mine. I might have to trademark that, but I'm at Sports Law Lust on Twitter and Instagram.
Okay, very good.
Hi, Dan. All right. See you here. Hi, Dan. Hey, I like how's your podcast going? Highly Confidential is the name of your podcast. That's still going on pretty good. I've listened to a few past episodes, and I know you're a big sports fan, and a lot of your Twitter is very, very entertaining. So let's get into it right away. You were talking to us off the air, or to our Facebook crowd. Apparently, there's a $10 million defamation lawsuit going on. So why don't you give us a lot of us probably on the West Coast hadn't seen the news yet. So go ahead and for us.
So I think a lot of people might have actually seen the news and assumed that it was fake because it's just such a bizarre headline. But the latest on the Washington football team's front, Dan Snyder, obviously they're still in the process of picking a name. But I guess he didn't want to sit in the background for too long. What Dan Snyder has done, he has filed 2 separate lawsuits, one for defamation and the second one is a pre-suit discovery matter to try to figure out who's behind a certain website. So for those that don't know, and there was about a 2-3 week period where every article online was about how Dan Snyder is mismanaging the Redskins, how they need to kick him out of football. And in addition to those topics, there were some articles, there was not really any sourcing for them, but that said that this Washington Post bombshell article that ended up coming out, it was a story about kind of harassment within the organization, but there was, we'll say, some smoke that this might be a bombshell allegations and Snyder being tied to Jeffrey Epstein and being on the flight list and having a really close relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, which there wasn't really any, blue checkmark Twitter accounts or anyone saying it, but it was out there, it was floating around. So now that the smoke has cleared, Dan Snyder is coming in guns a-blazing. He's suing for defamation, part of the websites that were behind these articles. And then number two, the websites that he doesn't know who they own, he's filing lawsuits to figure out their identity. So Snyder, we know he's got a ton of money, and now he's putting it to use with some of these lawsuits.
Dan, call me what's suspicious, but this seems pretty convenient at a time when you're under the spotlight and under the heat of investigation, that all of a sudden you get to become a part of a story that diverts a whole lot of heat off of what you're under, and now you get to become the person suing somebody else. Does this smell suspicious to you at all?
I mean, I think it's suspicious in a different way. I think it's suspicious that Dan Snyder has no idea what he's doing and is not being advised properly. So, I mean, I guess, one thing, let's say, that was his approach, that he's, wanting to get out from the heat, that there's allegations of sexual harassment rampant in the organization, to try to turn the tables and to sue someone for defamation, right, for claiming you have a tie to Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, that's one way to deflect attention. But, we were talking about it offline. The other thing that does, it might deflect attention from one thing, but now it puts all the attention on an alleged connection with Jeffrey Epstein, which I think is much, much worse than, employees in your organization kind of going out of control. This is, something that could derail you and maybe have more of a chance to get you removed from your spot as an owner if you really did have a legitimate and substantial tie to Jeffrey Epstein. So, obviously he's being advised by some attorneys. I just don't think that this was the right move. Usually with this stuff, the move is to fade into the background, in our Twitterverse, let something else be the story. But Dan Snyder seems to be intent on being the story here. The $10 million defamation suit that is going to keep him in the headlines, at least for the foreseeable future.
We're visiting with Dan Lust, at Sports Law Lust on Twitter, and very entertaining and informative. I enjoy your Twitter feed there, Dan. This is Casey Freelove. I want to ask you another question related to the Washington football team, but not this story. Do you think the reason why that they delayed actually naming the team is because that certainly smart gentleman there in Virginia bought up all the trademarks and websites and everything that they could think of as far as being able to announce whether they're going to be the Aviators, the Generals, the Senators, whatever the hell they're going to end up calling the team? What, in your opinion, from the legal standpoint, is the reason why they're sticking with just Washington football team?
So there have been reports, it's not directly from the Redskins, but again, the Washington Post, who you'd think it would be keyed into these sources. They've announced that the Redskins have picked a name that they're preferential to, but they're not releasing it because it's currently involved in an ongoing trademark dispute. So could that be that gentleman from Virginia? He's a public accountant. His name is Martin McCauley. For those that don't know, he bought up about 60 team names over the last 6 years. He just, had a feeling that this would happen, and he's saying he wasn't trying to cash in, but it might end up happening anyway. So that's also, as we were talking, guys, suspicious. Yes, very suspicious that he did this out of the goodness of his heart. But I do think that indications are that they're being held up because it's in a trademark dispute. If there was a name that they really wanted and it wasn't in a trademark dispute, they wouldn't be the Washington football team. They would be the Washington Renegades or Red Wolves or Sentinels, whatever it is. So if you're just following the breadcrumbs, it looks like either Martin McCauley, this guy in Virginia, might have actually we'll say, had a very effective troll job on the Washington football team.
Hey, Dan, Vasu here again. So, that's just a mess in Washington. We know everything that's going on with Washington, the name of the football team, and Dan Snyder's obviously been in the news for the wrong reasons, but also ever since his ownership of the Redskins. But let's switch it over to college football a little bit, because the story came out about the Colorado State players that were, I don't know if you call it protest or walking out on the university. Let me ask you, just in general, what is the obligation of the university towards the students, and what's the obligation to the university, because they're on scholarship, but they are looking for conditions to make sure they are safe. But you can't fault the players. Actually, you can't fault anybody for wanting to be safer in 2020 based on how everything's going. But from a legal standpoint, what are the obligations by the university to the student athletes, as well as the students for that matter, but the student athletes in this case, and the student athletes back to the university?
So I think it's important to note, right? Like this is not a world where the student athletes are protected by unions. They're pretty much on their own. And college scholarships are a privilege. They're not necessarily a right. And there's no union to protect an athlete if something goes wrong. So you kind of have to keep that in mind. As much as, and I think it's a good cause they're standing up for, a number of different causes. But there's nothing legally that's really protecting these students from potentially losing their scholarships. So part of the, we'll say, bargain for exchange, there's no money obviously in college football. So you get a free scholarship to the extent that you are playing football. That's kind of level one of how it works. And obviously now there's some legislation being done behind the scenes, and the NCAA is kind of pushing to say that if you sit out, because of COVID, you won't lose your scholarship, and they're trying to void any waivers that any players have signed thus far with schools. But I guess it's still important, right? A lot of these demands, right? If you just look at what's happening in the Pac-12, the Mountain West, the Big Ten, all uniting all these different players across the conference. It's not just COVID, right? They're sitting out and threatening to sit out for a number of other reasons, right? They want medical insurance. They want to split the revenue, for, the piece of the revenue pie. So that's not the type of conduct that you would think that would be protected by the NCAA. So just important to be mindful of it. If this happened in the pros, right, if a guy sat out, the union would protect them. But there is no such protection afforded to college athletes. You're kind of at the mercy of the NCAA when it comes to the law.
Dan, that brings me to a question that I had. Is it possible for these college players to unionize?
That answer it was given to us when Northwestern football tried to unionize a couple years ago, and the National Labor Relations Board said no, they could not. It didn't leave open the question of whether a different school under a different circumstance could possibly try to unionize. But the most recent example, I believe it was 2016, but in the past few years, the NLRB came back and said no. So we might be entering a world where this question comes up again, especially with kind of player empowerment moving to the college ranks. But as of today, as of 2020, no, there is no private right to form a union at the college level.
Dan, let me ask you this: as far as this name, image, likeness era that we're entering into, how sticky or complicated is that going to get legally, considering that you've got 50 different states? Certain states seem like they're more ahead of the curve. I mean, I interview a congressman on my radio show every week, and they've said they're going to look into it as well. Just kind of give us an overview of the scope of how you feel this is going to go as we move towards eventually perhaps college athletes getting paid.
It's a fascinating topic, and one that we really have to keep our eye on. I mean, we can just say it's going to happen in the future, but we have to think about the mechanics. So just as a brief background, the first state to pass some type of legislation to allow athlete compensation was California. That's fair pay to play. They did the NCAA a big favor, and they said, we're not going to have these laws take effect until 2023. So they gave the NCAA about 4 years to get this done. Meanwhile, there's very few, we'll say, bipartisan issues that pass through both houses. So obviously senators around the country, and politicians wanted to get this bill passed in their state. So one of the states that also passed a version of athlete, compensation is Florida. And their effective date is the earliest one in the United States is July of 2021. So that's when this battle is going to come to a head, when the NCAA doesn't have compensation laws versus one out of 50 states that has it. So everyone's kind of wondering what will happen. Important to note that when California did pass their fair pay to play, this was November of 2019, a couple big schools, athletic directors at schools from Ohio State to Wisconsin, they said that California schools, if and when their legislation comes into effect, will have an unfair advantage, and we're not going to schedule games with them. We're not going to play them because, just using common sense, they believe that having compensation will allow you to get better athletes, right? The next LeBron James, the next Pat Mahomes, all of those players would go to California. Those same comments, we haven't heard that from any other state other than targeted at California. But that might just be because the NCAA has told them, hey, don't threaten to boycott a school. And why is that, guys? Because in the antitrust realm, we as attorneys, that's a group boycott. You're not allowed to do that, especially an entity like the NCAA. So we have to be mindful that there is a world, July 2021 is the earliest it's going to happen, where certain schools, be it U of F, FSU, Miami, those schools and their athletes are going to have an advantage in recruiting, a very big advantage. So something to be mindful of. We don't really have to worry about it until July 2021. And if the NCAA, by God's grace, can come up with their own compensation plan before that, it will absolve that issue. But I'm going to be very hard pressed. And I wouldn't predict the NCAA can figure it out that quickly.
Daniel Lust is with us. You can find him on Twitter at Sports Law Lust. You can also catch his podcast, Detrimental. Daniel, how often do you put the podcast up?
So we're once a week. So that detrimental stands for conduct detrimental, like in football, as we're seeing a number of guys badly behave. So we try to talk about any of the nexus between sports and law. Like, guys, we're all sports fans at the end of the day. And then there's always these weird conversations, right? Grievances, even someone like Antonio Brown, and even someone like Dan Snyder. There's always kind of a sports law tie-in to all this. If you're interested in the kind of underpinning of these sports, even contractual negotiations, we get into all of that. So once a week we release the episode every Tuesday.
Yeah. Very good. Vasu?
Not to mention that there's a lot of humor involved in there too. As we said earlier, your Twitter feed is very entertaining. So based on that, the whole Lou Williams situation, I enjoyed your playback on the Lou Williams situation, the chicken wing defense. But let's take it a step further here with all the pro sports. Guys are opting in, and now they're doing it at a later decision. So if you're in the bubble, or even if you're not in the bubble, baseball and NFL football, what kind of if you agree to play under the conditions that are there, and then all of a sudden you opt out later, is it because of the union that they're not going to get penalized as much, or are they obligated in the sense to play the contract out because they did sign the contract and they did sign whatever agreement was there between the owners and the players to play within the realm or within the scope of how the seasons are going to go? Because I'm very interested. And what do you think in terms of, and also what do you think in terms of if you do stay within the bubble and you agree to play within the bubble, severe penalties and or suspensions based on the agreement and the play that you were agreed to be in the bubble and abide by all the rules, Dan?
So are we talking baseball, football, or
well, all sports? I'm just saying, what's your opinion on basically on if guys during the like they've already agreed to go into the bubble, but then they opt out right in the middle of it, or they break the rules? What kind of avenues can the teams take, and do you think it should be severe because it was a mutual agreement upon between the players and the owners to go into the bubble? And we see certain situations where they've gone out and done things and not very much now, and they have no positive test. But let's take the Cespedes situation. He just kind of walked out on the Mets 2 weeks ago. Do you think that if he decided to come back that the Mets should let him in, or legally what are the Mets' obligations to him from a payment standpoint, or does he get paid since he voluntarily opted out?
So it's interesting. I mean, I guess I should, as a footnote, all of these leagues have very different opt-out protocols. NBA, they're 20%. They only have 20% of their season left. So theirs is very different than baseball or football, which haven't started. Football, we just had it yesterday. The NFL's hard deadline to opt out. If you opted out before 4 p.m. yesterday, you got a stipend, or you got I think it was a lump sum. I think it was either between $350 if you had a high risk, or $150 otherwise, and you could leave. Baseball, meanwhile, as we saw Vasu, the Cespedes left at a moment's notice. There was literally, he didn't tell anything to the Mets, and the Mets showed up, and there was no Cespedes. So the Major League Baseball deadline, we're going to hear about it, this opt-outs, throughout the whole year, because Manfred, in his infinite wisdom, didn't want to put a deadline. He didn't put any deadline on opt-outs. So you just have to be mindful that if a team, if I'm a player on the worst, I heard you guys talking about the Giants. I'm a San Francisco Giants fan. I grew up rooting for the Giants. If the Giants go out to a start, right, and they're making up a record, let's say they're 5-25, right? Why am I playing at that point? Why wouldn't I opt out?
For the salary, Dan, for the salary.
No, but if there's nothing left for the season, if I've already, let's say I've already made millions, right? If I'm Brandon Crawford, I have a really nice contract, but it's a 5-30 team, I don't know if I want to be around the situation anymore. So baseball allows for that, and no ramifications if you opt out on really a moment's notice. Football, after this deadline, you have to show proof of a family member that got COVID, or some type of change situation. You're going to have to go through their panel. So, my overall take, I think it's an interesting system. I mean, there's not really such cognizable penalties for if you break bubble protocol. Obviously, if you're Lou Williams and you go to a gentleman's club.
My favorite story of the year in the pandemic so far.
Mine too. I mean, it's we can laugh about it because there's no positive tests in the NBA, but we're all adults here. We can use our imagination. If you go to a gentleman's club and pictures are taken of you at a gentleman's club, and you go back and and he's saying he just went in for the chicken wings, but if you did some other activities, you might be at a higher risk of infecting the entire NBA bubble, with whatever you got in the gentleman's club.
Right.
So Lou Williams got off with a very minimum period of quarantine. Cespedes, who just disappeared, got no punishment at all. And I think there probably should be some more teeth to breaking bubble protocol. To me, the baseball season almost got derailed before it got started with the Marlins and the Cardinals because they went to a bar and they went to a casino. Those are rights and obligations that, people should have, normal everyday human beings should have. But if the entire billion-dollar baseball season is resting on you not going to a casino, probably there should be some punishment if you go to a casino. Maybe you shouldn't be allowed to play for the rest of the season if you, recklessly go into a casino and then infect the rest of your team. So that's my take on it. It's not my non-legal take, but I just think that these sports did not do themselves a favor without having clear punishments and severe punishments for this. Because as much as sports are happening now, they could go down like a house of cards very quickly if enough players took advantage of these rules.
Dan Lust has been with us. You can find him at Sports Law Lust on Twitter, and you can also catch his podcast, Condetrimental. It goes up. Dan, I'm sorry, you said every Tuesday?
You could just auto subscribe, and then you don't have to worry about when it comes out.
Hey, see, I should know that. I should know that. I let me guess. Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Spotify. Do all those sound right?
You're missing internet, just internet generally.
The internet also.
Just internet generally. Okay. Hey, Dan, thanks for joining us again. We want to have you back, man. You are so fun to have on.
And Charlie, I like your hat, the Whalers hat. That's our outro music, actually. The Whalers goal music on our podcast.
Oh, fantastic, man! This is my favorite logo of all sports logos of all time. And when I found this hat, man, it just made me so happy. So I'm glad you like it. Once again, man.
On this, Dan, we get you out of here. We get you out of here on this, Dan. You got any winners for us? You got any futures winners for us? Because I know you like to play a little bit first.
I have the only thing that I feel very confident about, a Dodgers Yankees World Series. I picked up that I mean, it's a match, but I got it at plus 625. Dodgers Yankees before Mookie was traded. So I think you can get it now for maybe plus 250.
Right.
But I just feel, for whatever reason, the Dodgers and Yankees are just the class of the respective leagues. The Astros faded, the Red Sox are fading, and I don't really think there's a challenger in the NL to the Dodgers. So I know it's a little chalky, but I'm and even listen, guys, I'm a Giants fan, and I'm telling you I like the Dodgers. So that's okay.
Well, I'm a fan, and I'm telling you in the Bay Area, and I'm telling you I like still anyway. So
yeah.
All right. Sounds good. All right, Dan, thanks for being with us. Have a great day.
A pleasure, guys. Thank you.
All right, fellas, we got about 5 minutes to wrap things up here. I just wanted to talk real quick. Jeff Passan was on today on Sports Center. He was talking a little bit about that he thinks Major League Baseball is in bad trouble on this whole COVID-19 situation. And he was saying that he thinks that they've got to scramble, and for the playoffs, they have to put together some kind of a bubble situation. Do you see baseball being able to move that quickly? And what do you think of that? Do you think they can do that? And should they do that?
What was the question? I didn't catch the
Well,
question.
two separate questions there. Should they? No, should they? Yes, they should. Will they? Absolutely not. There's not enough time to do it. There's not a spot that's cool enough in the U.S. for them to realistically get that under control, in my opinion. I think when we look back, I mean, we've talked about this for a couple of weeks. I love what Adam Silver and the NBA has done. He brought the guys in early. He said, you're going to stay in your damn hotel room for a few weeks. We're going to get you all negative, and then we're going to get out here and play. Now, granted, it is much easier with a 12-man roster to do so. With baseball, you're talking about, at the very minimum, 28 guys per team, and trying to get everybody crammed into one space with the trainers and all the attention that is required with that. And look, I trust Jeff Passan. He's one of the up and he's like the new Ken Rosenthal. If that guy thinks that baseball's in trouble, and the three of us think baseball's in trouble, baseball might be in trouble. I mean, if the Cardinals don't get back out on the field this weekend, guys, we're going to be talking about 2 full weeks of inactivity. And when it comes down to the end, I know Manfred has said that he's willing to go with winning percentages, but you've got to have at least somewhat of a balanced schedule. I would say at a minimum, you have to play 50 of the 60 games to be able to do that, Vasu.
I agree with you, Casey. I mean, you have to have a representative sample, because if you're going to go by winning percentages, then you have to make sure that teams have 55 to 60 games, 50 to 60 games, and not have any other teams that are at 25 or 30 games, because that's going to be unfair. Like the Marlins situation, having to catch up with doubleheaders and 7-inning doubleheaders and makeup dates. The same thing's going to happen to the Cardinals, and I think the Phillies are in that situation as well too. And I know the Yankees have started to play their games to catch up to everybody else right now. So I'll be interested to see what happens. But the baseball protocols, they should have done it maybe at the beginning of the year. The baseball protocols for the bubble should have taken place. Happy to have been a bubble, negative test out of the way. Clearly, it's working for the NBA and the NHL, Casey.
Charlie, let's talk about this too, and we want your thoughts on baseball. It's not too late right now. The NFL is the most powerful league on planet Earth. It is not too late, Commissioner Goodell. You see what's happening. You know that NFL guys are going to be traveling around and enjoying their lifestyles as the celebrated athletes that we make them by putting our eyeballs on the screen. I'm pleading with you. At least think about it. You can find a way to bubbleize. I know it's more complicated because of the length of the games and all that. But if you went into a bubble and played, say, triple headers Friday, Saturday, Sunday in one market, triple headers Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you are going to make so much damn money from the eyes on the television screen. You might not even have to worry as much about the financial windfall. My biggest worry, and I think all three of us share this concern, we live for football, man. If you take away football, it's like everything else that has been done was like, okay, that was nice, but I'm here for the big sports, Chuck. And I mean, I hate to minimize it like that because I love all sports, don't get me wrong. But the NFL is king in America, and they've got time to figure this out.
Yep, and they've got to do a bubble. They've got to do regional bubbles. If they don't, they're gonna wind up just like baseball is right now. They're gonna have pockets of places where they're not going to be able to play. They're going to have teams go down, and it's going to be a mess. And you're right, it's the NFL. They've got the money. They can do it. They've got the areas, and it's got to happen. So I don't know what they're going to do. So anyway, that's going to do it for us. We have had a great time. I love having Dan Lust on. He is so fun to talk about the legal part of sports. He makes it fun. And we love having you with us. Folks on Facebook Live, we've loved having you with us. If you're joining us on Apple Podcasts, on iHeartRadio, on Spotify, we're glad you're with us too. We're
Don't
here
forget
daily.
Google. Don't forget Google.
All right, Google too. We're everywhere, okay? You look for us, make the money and run. We're there, we promise. We're glad that you're with us. Join us every day. We have our daily sports reports, and then we also are here for 60 minutes every Friday. For Vasu, for Casey, I'm Charlie O. This has been Make the Money and Run. Have a great day and good luck, everybody.
And we are